Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Hopefully you're having a great day. In today's episode, we are going to be going over how to create a cell location in your Roblox simulator. Now, as always, if this video does help you guys out or you do enjoy it, make sure you smash the like button, also hit the subscribe button, and turn those post notifications on if you want to be notified when we upload more Roblox development content. Additionally, I do have a Patreon if you guys like to support me and gain access to all the scripts and the game file that I make during this episode. There's a link down below in the description, and you guys can go and check that out. With that being said, let's get into it. So, to show you guys what I actually mean by the cell location, as we can see in Eating Simulator, the simulator that we're recreating during this series, they have a little cell location right here. Basically, you can collect some food and then step on this part right here, and then that will remove all of our food and give us some coins based off however much food we actually had. Additionally, on the right side of our screen, there's actually a little cell button, which we can click on, and that'll teleport us directly onto the cell point as well, so we'll be creating that too. So, going right into the studio and the project that we've been working on this entire time, we can actually look inside of our workspace, and we already have a folder called Scriptable Objects, which contains the shop open, and this is a part that whenever we step on this, it actually displays the shop GUI to us. So what we're going to do is we're actually just going to duplicate this by selecting it and then hitting Control D, and then we'll move it over a little bit just like that, and then let's go ahead and rename this to cell, and that'll indicate that this is the cell part. Now, aesthetically, you can create your cell part in many different ways. What I find to be one of the easiest ways is going directly into the toolbox, into the marketplace, and make sure you're searching for models, and then just search up cell. Now, once you do that, you'll see a bunch of different cell models pop up, and you could choose any one of these. I'm just going to select the first one that I find. And no, we're not actually going to use the cell model. What I'm really trying to find is a decal. And what I want the decal for is actually for this specific circle. So if we delete it, we can see the circle goes away. So that's what this person is actually using to create this little circle right here. They're using a specific texture, and they set the color to yellow. So you could even have it a different color if you wanted to. And then because of the specific texture is a circle exactly as we see right now, we can put that onto any part that we want, and then that'll give us the little circle effect that we're looking for. I'll have this decal link in the description down below, just in case you're unable to find the specific model in the toolbox, so you guys can go down there if you want to use this exact texture. Go back inside of the original cell part that we had, add in a decal, and then just go ahead and use that same specific texture. Now we're going to want to make sure that the face is actually on the top. It also depends on how your part is laid out. You could have this part upside down, and then the top might actually be the bottom. But if you actually click on the face and change the face, depending on where you move your mouse cursor, that'll automatically adjust the face for you. You could really just click the specific side that you want it on. So we now have the decal on there. We now want to adjust the color. Decide whatever color you want to. We're just going to go with the yellow. So I'm going to click yellow, hit OK, and now we're pretty much all good for that. The next thing that we want to do is we want to actually add the cell text that we see on this part that we added in over here, and we want to add that directly to our part as well. So what we're going to do is we are going to get a Billboard GUI, and then inside of the Billboard GUI, we are going to get a text label. Now let's go ahead and make a few adjustments to the text label. The text is going to be cell in all caps. The text will also be scaled. The color of the text is going to be a yellow. So a yellow. The background is going to be fully transparent. And then we're also going to want to make the stroke not transparent so that we see it just like that. And now that's already pretty close. We just need to make a couple more adjustments. So we want to set the Billboard GUI to always on top so that we always see the Billboard GUI and it's not hidden by other parts. Now what we want to do is inside of the Billboard GUI, we want to actually adjust the size. So we're going to first start by setting it to 1, 0, 1, 0. That'll set it to 100% of the width and the height. Then we also want to do the same with the text labels. So inside of here, we're going to say size. We're going to set it to 1, 0, 1, 0. And now it is pretty small. So what we're going to do is back inside of the Billboard GUI, we are going to continue adjusting the size until we find something that we like. We'll try 2 in the X, and that still seems a little bit small. I think we want it to be a little bit larger, so we could go with 3, and then let's adjust the Y to 2. I think that's still slightly too small, so we'll go with 3.5 and 2.5. Okay, I think that's good. I'm not entirely sure if that's great size. You guys can kind of judge that for yourself. Additionally, back inside of the text label, let's go to the font. And my favorite font, my go-to font is always the Gotham. You guys probably already know that. We're going to go with Gotham semi-bold. I think that looks pretty decent. Now, back inside of the Billboard GUI, let's go to the offset. And what we're going to look for specifically is the studs offset. And that'll basically reposition this around the part, depending on what offset we actually give it. So we probably want to adjust this to either 1, which, yeah, I think we're going to probably want like a 2. I think that looks good because remember, we want this to be above the yellow circle. We're not really caring so much about the part. And while we're talking about that, let's go back to the part and change the transparency to 1. So now that becomes completely invisible. And with all that being said, I think that looks pretty good. It looks like how theirs looked at least, or at least very similar. The final thing that we want to do is go back inside of the Billboard GUI and change the max distance to something probably like 50 maybe. It really depends. What that means is if we get 50 50 studs away from that Billboard GUI, this will no longer be displayed to us. So if you want them to see it from further away, you can make it 100. I would not recommend leaving it at infinite though, because they could literally see it all the way across the map, and that's probably not what you want to do. Also, I'd recommend that you change your current viewport to something like the iPhone or something like that, just to verify that it does look good on all the different devices, and it does look fine on mobile as well, so we don't have to even worry about that. The last thing that we want to do is we want to position this part. So as we can see, there is a shadow below the circle, and it doesn't look like the circle is actually on the ground. It looks like it's floating, which is probably not something that we want, and we can see with this part is in the ground. So what we can do is we can just move this like that, and that will be good. Now, one thing to consider is, remember, the way that this is going to be set up when we script it is whenever the player touches this specific part, they will sell all their current food and receive coins. Because of what we just did, which we basically lowered the part almost entirely into the ground, you could experience certain issues like the player not touching this specific part because of how low to the ground it actually is, and that could cause some issues for our script to not get triggered. An alternative that we can do, which is really simple, is duplicate this part, put this part inside of the same part, delete the decal on the main part, which is holding this one, and then we could just rename this one like fake, for example, and then we're going to remove the Billboard GUI, and now what we're going to do is move the fake part up, right? So this part is going to be above the ground, and then the fake one, which is inside of our main part, is going to be down here. So there we go. So now when we set up our script, we're going to set it up so the player touches this specific part. And if you're not exactly understanding, let's look at it this way. This part is completely above the ground, right? So anybody can easily walk onto this part. Let's go ahead and make that transparent again. And then let's make this one not transparent. So now when we see this one's entirely in the ground, where you could possibly run into issues of the player not being able to touch it because it's so far or so close to being completely through the ground. So what we did is we basically created a fake part which just holds the decal to display the specific circle. And that's inside of the part that we're using to basically track the player's touch. And then also, depending on how you feel, if you think that the Billboard GUI seems to be a little bit too far above the circle now, you could also parent that to the fake part as well. So now the Billboard GUI's positioning is based off of this specific part, which of course is lower than the cell part. And we're now pretty much done with creating this part. If you did want to be a little bit more creative and add more effects to this specific part, what you could do is you could add either a particle emitter or one of the lighting objects to make it a little bit more cool or make it stand out a little bit more. Realistically, this tutorial is mostly made to show you how to do the scripting and stuff like that, but if you guys want to get more creative and play around with these different things, you guys certainly can. With all that being said, we are now going to delete the part that we originally brought into our game. Now, scripting this is rather simple because we already did something like that for the shop open. So what we're going to do is go inside of the server script service, look inside of the scriptable object script that we already have, and we can see that we made the shop open right here. What we're going to do is we're simply going to copy and paste this. And if you guys haven't watched this episode, I'll quickly explain exactly what we're doing. Inside of the workspace, we're literally looking for the scriptable objects folder, which is this folder right here. So when we get the folder, we look for the shop open part, and then we use the touched event and connect that to a function right here. Every time this part is touched, it's going to pass us the part which touched it, and then we're going to get the player from that specific part's parent, and then we use the get player from character function to get the player from the character, which the character should be the part's parent that touched this specific part. If we do get the player, then we call the shop open remote, and we fire that to the player, and then we also print that it did work. So that's exactly what we do with the shop open part. I'm going to remove that print statement, and what we're going to do this time is instead of the shop open, we're going to use the cell part. So scriptable objects folder, and then this time the cell part, we're going to use the same exact function as the get player, and then if player, we actually want to reward them a specific amount of coins. We want to get the rewards module script that we made a couple episodes ago. So what we're going to do is we're going to say local server script service equals game get service, server, script, service, just like that. And then local rewards equals require server script service dot utils dot rewards. Now we got the rewards module, and we're then going to say rewards dot coins because we want to give the player coins, and we are going to pass through the player. The amount of coins that we want to give the player is based off of how much food that they have. Oh, and it looks like we slightly messed up the name in the rewards, so there we go. That's all fixed now. So the amount of coins that we want to reward the player is based off how much food we have. So to get their food, we're going to say player.leaderstats.food.value, and that's going to return the current amount of food that they actually have. And now we got to decide, do we want to use their coin multiplier? I think the coin multiplier can be acquired from different ranks and probably the pet system. This is entirely up to you though, based on your game. Do you want to use the coin multiplier or do you not want to use the coin multiplier? We are going to say that we do want to use the coin multiplier. And then the last thing that we want to do is we want to set the player's current food value. So we're going to copy this, and then we're going to set the player's current food food value to 0 because we want to reset the amount of food that they currently have. And then of course we're not going to use this remote, so we're going to go ahead and delete that. And now that should be all good. Also, make sure that you reset the player's food after rewarding them the coins, because we need that number to specifically reward the player with that amount of coins. So let's go ahead, start up our game, and see if this works. So we're going to go ahead, get some food. We now have 10 food, walk over to the sell point, and now we see we actually just got some coins. So let's do it again, and now the coins have been added to our balance. And that works exactly as it should. Perfect. We might be able to optimize this function a little bit more. So what we could do is we can create a variable inside of here saying food, and then we could set that to this value right here. And then what we could do is we can say if food is greater than 0, then, and now we'll only call this function if the player actually has food to sell. And then instead of getting the value this way, we could just say food, because now we know how much food they exactly have. So the sell part is completely set up at this point. We're all done with that. What we're now going to do is set up the little sell button in the GUI. Go into the starter GUI. We're just going to duplicate the currency GUI and rename this to buttons for now. We might adjust it to the future. Let's now go inside of the currency holder, and we're actually just going to go ahead and grab the purchase button out of here. So I'm just going to move that and put that into the currency holder. We can go ahead and then delete the coins and the food. Let's also go inside the currency holder and change the background transparency property to 0 so that we could easily move this across our screen, because that's exactly where we want it. And now they have it lined up on the right side of their screen, slightly off of the side. So I would say probably something like that. Their buttons are also relatively small, so we probably want to adjust it to, I'd say, about that size. That's pretty good. We'll also rename purchase to sell, and then we want to adjust the size to maybe 1,0, 0.5, That's a decent size, I'm not gonna lie. So then we'll make the background transparency of the currency holder 1 so that it's invisible, and that looks pretty good. We then want to change the text of the sell button to sell in all caps, and now I'd say that looks nearly identical to how they have it set up. What we can then do is we can duplicate this one time, and we can change the text from sell to go small, and that's their second button that they have, and that looks pretty good because we still have the UI list layout right there. So in the future, when we do add the go small functionality, and then also the shop, the codes, and all the other buttons that they have there, we can most likely just add it to this GUI right here, and we shouldn't have any issues. We're not going to actually add the go small button yet, just because we're simply not going to use it. We'll add that in the future when we do add the functionality though. Let's then rename the currency holder to button holder, and there we go. We can then open up the manager script right here, and then what we want to do is we want to rename the currency GUI from currency GUI to button GUI, and then we no longer have the currency holder, we now have the button holder. So we want to rename this as well from currency to button holder, and then we only have one button, which the button is called sell. So we're gonna find sell inside of the button holder frame, and we'll rename the food frame to sell button, and then we can delete this, and we can pretty much delete all of this as well. Then what we can do is we can say sell button.mouse button one click connect function, and now we got to decide what we want to do when we click this button. So what we want to happen is we want to teleport the player directly to the sell location. Now the way that we actually do this is by getting the workspace. So we're going to say local workspace equals game get service workspace, and then using the workspace we want to locate the sell part that we have right inside of here. Now the way that we can do that is by saying local sell part equals workspace wait for child scriptable objects, another wait for child sell, and then that'll give us the sell part. Now inside of the mouse button one click function, what we want to do is we want to say local character equals player dot character, and then we want to check if we found the character. We then want to do character set primary part C frame, which basically the character is a model, and each model can have a primary part, and the default characters always have a primary part set for them. And then what we're doing with the C frame is the C frame is actually the positioning of the player's character. So we're basically teleporting the player's character to specific coordinates. So we're going to use the set primary part C frame method, and then we're going to provide the C frame. And to get the C frame, what we're going to do is we're going to use the sell part. So we're going to say sell part dot C frame, and that's going to give us the C frame for exactly where the sell part at, which is basically the location of the sell part. And now before we test this, what we can do is we can just go ahead and add in a quick print statement. So we're just going to say print true and print true. I like to do this when I'm testing out new code, because if there are some issues in here, like because for some reason maybe this function isn't teleporting us at all, so this will easily allow for us to identify if the function is actually getting to this method call right here, or say it's stopping right here because we didn't find the player's character. I believe that this function that we have set up right now is basically completely guaranteed to work. So realistically, this debugging isn't required required, but I think it's really good to show you guys what I do sometimes because it might help you guys in the future. Anyways, we're then going to start our game and see if this works. So we have the sell button on the right side of our screen. Let's go ahead and click it, and we see we just got teleported directly to the sell part. Let's go ahead and click a few times, get some food, click the sell button, and we see we just got teleported to the sell part. So that works exactly as it should. So this works perfectly. The last thing that we want to do is we want to actually add a cooldown to using the sell button. Let's go ahead and remove these print statements right here. And what we can do is we'll create another variable called cooldown equals false. At the top of this function, we're going to say if cooldown equals true, then return end. And what this means is that if the cooldown is set to true, it's going to stop running the function and it's not going to go down to here at all. So this function will only run if cooldown equals false. Let's actually rename this variable from cooldown to on cooldown because that might make it a little bit easier to understand. So now what we want to do is whenever we actually teleport the player, we want to set on cooldown to true to prevent the player from using this once again. And then after we teleport the player, what we then want to do is we want to say task.wait 3 seconds because that's the cooldown. And then once these 3 seconds are up, we're going to set cooldown back to false so that the player is no longer on cooldown. So let's go ahead and start this up and see if it works. So let's click the button. We can see that we got teleported. Let's try to click it again. It's not working, but then after the 3 seconds is up, it works once again. So we're doing the same thing, and that works exactly as it should. The last thing that we want to do is we want to actually adjust the button to display how many seconds the player has to wait before the cooldown expires. So what we're going to do is we are going to remove the task.wait, and we're going to create a new variable called cooldown. And that's going to be equal to 3 because we want the cooldown to be 3 seconds. Then we're going to create a while loop. So we're going to say while cooldown is greater than 0, do. And what we're actually going to do is we are going to say sellbun.text equals cooldown. So this will change the sellbun's text to the actual cooldown. Then at the bottom, we want to say task.wait 1. So that'll wait 1 second each time we loop through. And then we want to say cooldown minus equals 1 so that we subtract 1 from the cooldown every single time this loop goes through. And then the final thing that we want to do is we want to change the sellbun.text after the cooldown expires to sell once again. So let's go ahead, start our game, and test this out. So let's hit the sell button. 3, 2, 1. Sell. So now we're able to sell again, and let's see. Let's make sure that's all working properly, and it looks to be. And yeah, that works exactly as how it should be. Perfect. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for this episode. Hopefully it did help you guys out. As always, if it did, make sure you smash the like button. Also hit the subscribe button and turn post notifications on if you want to get notified when I upload more Roblox development content. Additionally, I do have a Patreon if you guys like to gain access to all the scripts and the game file that I made during this episode. There's a link down below in the description. You guys go check it out. With that being said, I hope that you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.